It's time for the Rich Life Retirement Show. Brought to you by retirement professional and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, Beau Henderson.
If we want to plan for retirement right, we have to be realistic that there's things we do not know.
The mission at Rich Life Advisors is to help give you self-assurance that you have a strategy in place to provide guidance and avoid common pitfalls no matter what happens.
My happiness in the future is worth it. I'm going to be proactive and take charge of this because that's something I can't do for anybody. But I can work with somebody that will take that stand and we can do it together.
Let's get started. Here's Beau Henderson.
When you think about retirement planning, you probably think about your investments, taxes, maybe when to claim Social Security, but here's the truth. One of the biggest risks to your retirement isn't the market, it's caregiving. What happens if you or your spouse has a fall or a dementia diagnosis? None of us get more mobile or more independent as we age. And if you don't have a plan, a health event can drain your savings and put a huge burden on your family. Today, I'm joined by Annalee Kruger, a nationally recognized expert on aging and caregiving. She's going to show you the red flags to watch out for, how to avoid caregiver burnout, and what it takes to put an aging plan in place for peace of mind. But before we get to that, why this topic's near and dear to my heart, it's probably half a dozen years ago, I was at a Retirement Coaches Association annual symposium. And one of the speakers or conversations that had the biggest impact on me, and I think the whole event, was a lady shared a scenario to where she had taken care of her sick husband. And that wasn't part of their plan. That wasn't part of her life, her goals. And about the time he passed, so she took care of him until she passed, her mother got sick. And she had to take care of her. And she continued to share this. And she actually got to the point she shared, you know what? I love taking care of my people and the time I had with them. I wouldn't trade that. But I also got mad because what about my life? So why that was so impactful for this group, I stepped back and I looked around the room and 80+% of the room had tears running down their face as she described this event, what had happened in her life. And I realized then that this happens a lot more than you might think. People experience some version of this often, and it's often the caregiver that's not talked about because a lot of times emphasis is put on the patient. So I think our guest today can really speak to this, and I'm excited about this conversation. So once again, Annalee Kruger, welcome to the Rich Life Retirement Show. I'm excited to talk about this topic.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, kind of that story that I shared, is that something that you find to be the case? That was my insight from that event, and it really put it in a whole new light. What are you seeing out there? I like to set the stage with awareness of what's the actual issue or concern that we need to know about that we might not.
Yeah, literally what you just shared is what I deal with every single day with families. We know that 58% of adult kids get thrust into family caregiving without ever having any kind of plan. They feel very ill-equipped. That's when relationships within the family start to deteriorate. That's when the adult caregiver gets stressed out. And then they realize their parents never had any kind of plan in order, even just for like estate documents, living will, power of attorney, funeral arrangements, accounts, passwords, like nothing, like everything is just kind of a big mess. And then you're right. People get mad. Family caregivers get mad because they're like, well, this isn't what I had intended for my retirement. Or, I had to cancel 3 vacations because every time I try to go, dad falls again because he has Parkinson's. So this caregiver snowball is prevalent. We know that there's over 65 million family caregivers just in the United States. And those are just people who identify as a caregiver. When I speak at events, that's the first question I ask. How many of you are a family caregiver? And a few hands will raise, but those are the enlightened ones. But then when I start explaining what a caregiver is, like who's managing mail, who's talking to the financial advisor, who's talking to the insurance company, who's setting up medications, who's talking to the doctor, who's coordinating doctor's appointments and therapy, and who's sending meals, and who's going over to pick dad up because he fell again. Those are all caregiver duties that people don't realize. They're just like, well, Annalee, we're just doing what we do. We help our parents. Well, that's caregiving.
Well, some of the thing in your book, the invisible patient, you find it at invisiblepatientbook.com. If this topic is resonating or something that you're dealing with, highly recommend that book. We'll put that in the show notes. But you talk about some things that might not be from it. You're talking about a local caregiver versus long distance. And again, just defining what it is. A caregiver, somebody that does, like you said, it could be the male, it could be a combination of people. But let's talk a little bit about just defining that, and maybe just kind of transitioning into how can we tell if we're in that situation, we're caregiving, and there's signs of potential burnout.
Sure. So a caregiver is someone who takes care of someone who is dependent or vulnerable, right? Like an elderly parent or a spouse who just got an MS diagnosis or an ALS diagnosis. So it's someone who's providing either hands-on care or care oversight or managing finances. Those are all caregiving roles, managing medications, managing doctor's appointments, and they're not getting paid. So it's an unpaid service to loved ones. And that's usually what us adult kids kind of get thrust into. And, it's one thing if we'll talk about a couple of things. It's one thing if you live across the street and you're like, oh God, it's 3:00 in the morning. Dad fell trying to go to the bathroom, and you head over there in your slippers and your nightgown to try to pick him up. That'd be a daughter, I guess I shouldn't say that in this day and age, but anyone who goes over across the street in their slippers and their bathrobe to try to pick their parent up, that's a caregiver. But just think about all of the angst that you feel because you're like, okay, every time that phone rings or dad didn't answer the phone, did he fall? Did he wander out of the house? Did he burn the house down because he left the stove on again? All of that angst is where we talk about also the emotional toll on family caregivers, and not only the emotional toll of just always worrying, like, are they okay? Like this morning while we were working out some of the tech stuff, I was walking my dog. One of my elderly neighbors he fell in his garage again, and I don't walk with earbuds. And so I heard him yelling out for help. So I went and called the ambulance. This is several times that he's fallen. And so I know how much he weighs because that's how I can tell them how many paramedics to send out to pick him up. And then I called his daughter, and she's like, ugh, again. And so what happens is, families rely on, the good naturedness sometimes of friends and neighbors to kind of be the eyes and ears. And when you talk about a family member that lives across the street, while that can be convenient in some ways, like for doctor's appointments and hospitalizations, or like what happened with my neighbor this morning, he fell, his daughter had to, get out of bed and come. She works second shift. And so she had to get out of bed and come to the ER to meet with her dad and the doctors there. And it gets really overwhelming. And pretty soon we call it the caregiver snowball, where the family caregiver, the one where the brunt of this responsibility tends to fall on the shoulders of, we find how they get really overwhelmed, angry, resentful, and then they feel guilty for feeling that way. And they usually feel like they usually assume that their siblings will help out. And oftentimes siblings don't. Or in another scenario, if you don't have any siblings and you're an only child, or just as bad is, what if you never liked your parent in the first place? Maybe they weren't a good parent to you, and now you got thrust into caregiving, and you're like, well, I'm not a bad person, right? So I guess I'll do what I need to help my parent, but that doesn't mean that they want to. So living across the street is one thing. It's convenient, but yet it's also inconvenient. And those who are family caregivers living across the street or in the same zip code as their parent are probably nodding. But then it's a whole nother situation if you have to catch a flight. My typical son or daughter, because that's who reaches out to me for crisis planning and aging planning. My typical son or daughter is shelling out $15,000 in just emergency airfare. That's how much they're paying 6 to 8 months prior to them scheduling their consult with me. Because if you live in New York and your parents live in Tucson, Arizona, and your dad falls again, airfare is not $69 on Frontier. It's like $1,200 because you have to be there tomorrow because you have to talk to the doctor, right? So the financial toll is really expensive, and that's just airfare. That's not having to step away from their job, their ask for time off again, or burn through their FMLA, their Family and Medical Leave Act, or stepping away from their business. That's that financial toll, or they're contributing. The adult kids are often financially contributing to the well-being of their elderly parent, especially if their elderly parents living Social Security check to Social Security check.
As you're describing this, I'm thinking the emotional and the financial, the idea of, I'm mad. And I saw in that example, the room I talked about, there was a relief when people said, okay, it's okay. But then another big emotion you'd see on that side is then I'm guilty. I feel guilty about feeling bad. Yep. And then that transition into, you just described the cost or the financial impact to a family. And really where I'd like to go, Annalee, when we come back, we talked about this earlier before the show. This can come up and happen fast. Somebody need support, need care. How do we go from it happening to us, or once it happens, once it's there, how do we step back, come up with a plan, and proactively deal with this? So let's tackle that when we come back. We've been talking to Annalee Kruger, founder of CareRide Inc., a national virtual consultancy helping families prepare for aging, caregiving, dementia, and end-of-life planning. With over 30 years in senior care, she's a sought-after speaker, financial industry conferences, and author of The Invisible Toll on Family Caregivers. We'll be back with a whole lot more with Annalee on the Rich Life Retirement Show.
Out of all the people who sign up for Social Security, only 4% get all they deserve. The rest lose out. Don't leave money on the table. Get the new book, Social Security Clarity, for free. Just pay shipping. Text the word CLARITY 770-249-7424. That's 770-249-7424.
It's Uncle Sam, and he wants some of your retirement money. Like it or not, you're going to owe taxes on your 401k. The good news is you may be able to reduce your tax bill with some strategic planning. Beau Henderson and the team at Rich Life Advisors are here to help. You'll work together to craft a plan that is designed to help make sure you don't pay a penny more than you should, because you deserve to keep as much as possible of what you've earned. Taxes are historically low right now, and we all know they probably won't remain this low forever. So, call Beau Henderson and the Rich Life Advisors team before this tax-saving opportunity is gone. 877-731-7424. That's 877-731-7424. It's time to preserve the retirement you deserve without giving more than necessary to your favorite uncle. That's 877-731-7424. Investment advisory services made available through Fiduciary Capital Inc., a registered investment advisor. Firm does not offer tax advice.
Welcome back to the Rich Life Retirement Show. We've been talking with Annalee Kruger, founder of CareRide, a national virtual consultancy helping families prepare for aging, caregiving, dementia, and end-of-life planning. Author of The Invisible Patient, the emotional, financial, and physical toll on family caregivers. We've been really hitting this really important and often topic not talked about enough of caregiving. So Annalee, before we went to the break, we were talking about coming back and saying sometimes there's clues that there's issue. Let's talk about some red flags.
Yep. Red flags that your parents are not doing well. They're not thriving. They're failing at home. Are weight loss, memory impairment, where they can cover pretty well. Like when you call once or twice a month and talk to them for a few minutes, they can cover pretty well. If they have dementia, they're like, oh yeah, everything seems like it's okay. But when you go there and you see there's 3 or 4 months of mail stacked up and you're like, oh, I guess they can't manage their mail and their bills. And then that's when you start digging deeper and then realize they haven't been paying their bills, or they're about to be evicted, or they got scammed. And so mismanagement of mail, getting scammed, although that's not entirely fair because anyone can get scammed because these hackers are so good. But urinary tract infections, this is worth talking about for a few seconds because families don't realize the damage that a urinary tract infection can cause. It can cause falls, lethargy, increased confusion, dehydration. Like it can cause a lot of problems, delusion and hallucinations. And it's just because of a urinary tract infection. And adult kids will call me and they're like, hey, dad got dementia like overnight. And I'm like, no, it's probably a delirium. It's probably a urinary tract infection. And why it's important to talk about a urinary tract infection and knowing what those symptoms are is because people can go septic and die from them. And if your loved one has dementia, they're not going to be able to tell you, hey, I don't feel well. You have to know what those symptoms are and look for behavior changes like increased confusion, increased paranoia, lethargy where they have no energy, or if they're having falls, that is a prime indicator oftentimes that they have a urinary tract infection brewing, because they're not going to be able to tell you that they have symptoms. Other red flags, when we talk about weight loss, pop in the refrigerator, like open that refrigerator door and say, and look in there. Are they eating healthy foods? My hunch is that they are not. Smelling, when you go into the house, does it have odor? Does your loved one have odor? If so, they're not getting bathed properly or they're not getting to the bathroom properly. So the red flags are there. Looking at their pet. Did their pet lose weight? Is their pet up to date on their shots? Is their pet brushed and groomed properly? All of the symptoms are there now that you know what to look for. And as far as external things, look at the car. If they still drive, do a walk around of the car. Are there more dings and dents in it? If so, that's probably an indication that perhaps there's some driving or vision issues. So the red flags are there. So we just can't ignore those, because then you shouldn't be surprised when you get that call from, like me today, a neighbor saying, hey, your dad fell again, because the red flags are there. I can't stress this enough. And this is why I say it literally every single day. We do not get healthier. We do not get more mobile. We do not get more independent. We do not get more cognizant as we age. So it is only literally common sense that we start putting an aging plan in place now, because all of the people who had major strokes last Thursday didn't wake up thinking, oh, I think I'm going to have a major stroke today, and let's stress test the financial plan and our family relationships. Just like my neighbor didn't wake up thinking, oh, I'm going to fall today. But he did. And so now that spiraled a lot of things. He's in the ER. The daughter had to come over and she's like, this is not what I had in mind for today. She had her own doctor's appointment she had to get to. So you can see how that caregiver snowball gets really out of control, gets really overwhelming really quickly. And the solution is obviously putting a plan in place to plan A, B, and C for, okay, when care is needed, what technology solutions can we implement? What is the plan? What are the safety triggers if mom or dad can't stay home? Weight loss, wandering out of the house, 3 ER visits. Like, what are those safety parameters? And when is it time to bring in either care, more care, or make a move into a care community?
One of the things that resonates again with this, with the retirement planning, a lot of times what I'm doing or our team's doing, we're saying when it comes to taxes, estate planning, income planning, what can we be doing? We have this outcome that we desire. What can we be doing proactively every year to move towards that, or be in the best position possible when things come up or transitions happen? So it's the same thing here, right? How can we put a plan into place so when things come up or we're in the midst of them, we're better equipped or already have a plan of attack? So how do we start that, Annalee? Is there a process you go through, and we need to, we can come out with a 1-2 pager that's like, here's our plan. What does that look like? And we're interested in that would be probably a smart thing to get in place.
Oh, yeah, because caregiving and dementia costs will cripple the financial plan. So even if you are the best financial planner and wealth manager in the whole wide world, if you didn't start using a collaborative team approach with companies like mine. And here's why. Because often when I ask financial services professionals, how much are you planning? Like, what conversations have you had with your clients about the what whens of aging? And I'm not talking about just surface conversations like, Ethel and Marvin, what are your plans as you age? Well, of course, they're going to say, I want to age in place at home. And then you're like, okay, check the box, done, talked about that. But the reality is that in my experience, most advisors don't actually understand the actual costs of when their clients say they want to age in place at home, and consumers don't either. They don't realize that to age in place at home, my clients are paying $30,000 per month for just one companion. Now, if you're like my parents, my dad was 6'4", my mom was 5'2", but she had dementia and she was morbidly obese and insulin dependent diabetic. So when my dad had his stroke 2 weeks after my mom fell, like I was living what my clients live, right? The difference is I actually have a plan in place. My dad, because he's 6'4", he would have needed 2 caregivers because these are not football linebackers that come to the house to help you get to the bathroom and showered. And then because my mom, when she fell, this is what happens when they fall, her dementia progressed literally overnight. And so she went from being contented to watching the birds and doing puzzles to having her days and nights mixed up and wandering all over the house, right? And so as financial professionals, using a collaborative, a team approach, just like you work with a tax expert or an estate planner, having people who do aging planning so that you can proactively pull some levers if you have to for the financial plan. To have my parents both stay at home would have cost $80,000 per month. And that's not a nurse. That's not including a geriatric care manager to come out and set up medications and coordinate doctor's appointments. I did all of that to save them money, but also because I could. So when you're talking about those numbers and then knowing the landscape of senior care, advisors aren't trained on that, and you're not required to be trained on that. But the reality is some of these good quality care communities have a 3 to 5 to 8 year waiting list, or they have 40 people on the waiting list. So if mom falls and she hits her head on the dryer, and she's got a subdural hematoma, and now she needs 24/7 care, and they don't have all that money to bring in home care, she's going to end up in whatever care facility has an open bed. And we know from a World Health Organization study in 2022 that 66% of caregivers, professional caregivers in senior care and nursing homes, admit to abusing and neglecting the residents under their care. So the senior care industry has been crippled since the pandemic. 30% of my clients who are trying to age in place at home with companion care and nurses coming in and doing all of the things, 30% of them are on waiting lists with all of the different home care companies in their area because there's a massive shortage of healthcare workers. And so even if they do have millions of dollars, if they can't find caregivers to come in, how are they going to stay at home? And then that's, again, when adult kids end up, retiring early or moving their parents in with them because they're in crisis mode. And that's not a solution either. That's a Band-Aid, but that's not a solution.
Well, Annalee, one of the things we're big on, and kind of the Rich Life philosophy, is take action now. So we have one step a family could take, and I'll tell you mine. If any of you reach out to me, and it's either, because I see this a lot, people retiring, at some point taking care of a parent or an in-law or something, or both, and it changing their plan, like we're talking about. If that's the case, or you're saying, hey, I would like to have some planning in place for my kids when it's time, I'm going to get you in touch with Annalee. What's a step somebody could take right now to proactively do this? And then we're going to have you back because there's so much to unpack here.
There's a lot to unpack. Yeah, we've touched upon about 0.9990%. And I'm not even mathy, but we've barely touched the surface on this. So the first step, if this is hitting home for any of you listening to this, the first step is, if you're a caregiver, if you're concerned, hey, I don't want to end up in crisis mode, really the first step is going on my carerightinc.com website. There's a free webinar on the homepage. You can click on that. It talks more about what's coming down the pike for you as a family caregiver, but you can also schedule a 30-minute complimentary consult where you just give me an overview of what your situation is. I can give you a couple ideas of what to be mindful of, and then what my services are. And if you decide you want to work together, that's fantastic. If that doesn't feel comfortable for you, that you're well, I don't know this lady, I just heard her on a podcast, you can certainly go on Amazon and you can buy my book, The Invisible Patient, the emotional, financial, and physical toll on family caregivers. So there's action steps you can take. Or if you are already in crisis and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize we were in crisis until I listened to this podcast because I am getting burned out. I am jeopardizing my job, or my spouse is saying, look, you're not even present in our own family relationships anymore. You better figure out what to do with your mom and dad, because that happens all the time. Leverage this podcast and say, look, family, we're in trouble here. We're in uncharted territory. We don't know what we don't know. There's a lot of nuances to this aging and caregiving and dementia and senior care costs. We better work with a professional. Again, you can leverage this podcast. Everything that you do at the Rich Life Retirement Show is to bring resources and awareness to your audience. So this is another resource. I'm another resource that you can leverage.
No, thank you for being part of that community, that mission of, again, retirement. I've been around this a long time. Retirement doesn't work out like the beautiful people on the yacht that you see in advertising always, right? It's a little more, there's little twists and turns along the way. But I appreciate, Annalee, the work you do. So important. And I do thank you for being a resource and just your heart. Just at the break, she told us a story. She's going to adopt an elderly dog because she believes no dog deserves to have to die. Humane Society. That's the heart that does this work. And I appreciate you for what you do. And we have to have you back. And I want to continue the conversation offline about being a resource for our clients. So thanks again.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right. Don't sleep on this. This is important. Get the book, The Invisible Patient. Check out, what was it, Annalee? It was carewriting.com.
Carewriting.com. Yep. You can, honestly, you can go on LinkedIn and Annalee Kruger. I'm right there. All the stuff you need to know is right there too. Or you can just Google me, Annalee Kruger, CareWrite Inc. I am all over the internet in a way that makes my parents proud.
In a positive way. And we'll put all contact info in show notes for those of you listening, or you can go to the Rich Life Retirement Show and find that. Again, thank you so much, guys. This is an important one. Pay attention. Don't wait until we're reactive when these situations happen. But this is part of the mission at Rich Life Advisors and the Rich Life Retirement Show, is to make sure we are truly providing the resources to truly equip for a successful retirement. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place, right here on the Rich Life Retirement Show.
Converting an employer plan account or traditional IRA to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences, including but not limited to a need for additional tax withholding or estimated tax payments, the loss of certain tax deductions and credits, and higher taxes on Social Security benefits and higher Medicare premiums. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA. Beau Henderson is an investment advisor representative with Fiduciary Capital, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of Fiduciary Capital, Inc., are for educational purposes only, and do not constitute specific individual advice. Rich Life Advisors does not offer legal or tax advice. Listeners are encouraged to discuss their financial needs with the appropriate professional regarding your individual circumstance. Beau Henderson and Rich Life Advisors are not associated with or endorsed by Medicare, the Social Security Administration, or any other government agency. Maximizing your Social Security benefits assumes foreknowledge of your date of death. Claiming later for a higher benefit may result in fewer benefits if you pass away earlier than expected. Investing in securities involves risk, including potential loss. No investment strategy can guarantee returns or eliminate risk. Investment values and income can fluctuate with market conditions. Past performance does not predict future results. References to protection or steady income apply only to fixed insurance products, not securities or investment advisory products. Guarantees depend on the insurance company's financial strength. Surrender charges apply for early withdrawal, which is taxed to ordinary income and may incur a 10% federal tax penalty if taken before age 59 and a half. This radio show is a paid placement.